Never hard for Sheik to be this heel? Like you said, the fans, they get so invested in the storylines that a lot of vitriol sort of directed his way, at least in the early days. Was that ever difficult on him?
Never, never difficult. It fueled the fire. It just fueled the fire. And one of the things I used to always say in my promos is, Iron Sheik, you spit on the ground of the United States of America every time you speak. You know whose mother's buried in that ground? My mother. And boy, it just got the people so irate. And he loved every second of it. He did cold showers. Cold, blistering cold showers. That's how intense he was. And he, a family man, completely, we were characters. He was a character, I was a character, but we both had families. We loved our families, and outside the ring, it was a different story. I never brought I never had a picture of Sergeant Slaughter or any character that I ever, the Super Destroyer or Beautiful Bobby Remus, my first character. Never had one of them in my house. I had them in my
Wow.
office, in a book somewhere, or maybe on a wall. But he didn't have it in his home either. And we were just characters that we played, and a lot of people don't understand, that John Wayne wasn't even in the Marine Corps, but look at all the war movies that he played. I mean, and was in. Not, Val Venus wasn't a strip artist. Nikolai Volkov wasn't a Russian. It goes on and on and on. We were characters, we're entertainers, and that's what we did. But we were the kind of entertainers that if you bought a ticket to see us, you get your money's worth.
You're not kidding. Let me hit you with two more quick ones, Sarge, and I'll get you out of here. And thanks so much for your time.
Not a problem. I'll talk about Iron Sheik
No,
to the day I die.
I appreciate that, and I can tell how much love you had for him. What was the impact to Sarge that he had on that next generation of wrestlers? I know a lot of people have said that was really the birth of Hulkamania when Hulk beats Sheik for the title, and then obviously becoming the superstar that he became. How important was Sheik on the next generation of wrestlers that came after you guys?
Well, he was very important to Hulk Hogan, I can tell you that. He did Hulk a huge favor. I'm sure there's lots of stories that people know about how Vern Gagne wanted him to break Hulk's leg and bring the title back to the AWA. And she came to my room in Pittsburgh, my hotel room, and told me the story. And he said, I don't know what to do. The coach wants me to come back to Minnesota. He gave me $100,000. I said, Sheik, you're going to make more money than you can ever believe. Just go tell your story that you just told me to Vince McMahon Sr. and tell him what you just told me and let him handle it. So he did. And of course, the Sheik did Hulk a huge favor and allowed him to take the title because the Sheik didn't have to. He was a shooter in our business, and there's not many of them around. And he was one of those gentlemen that passed on the torch. And the Iron Sheik was an incredible worker, performer in the ring. He took slams and things for me and other wrestlers that guys of his size that shouldn't have been doing. And I did the same thing, of course. But he just had so much love for wrestling, not only the amateur style that he learned, that was his survival in Iran. And when the Ayatollah took over, he had to get out of there because he was the guard, of the Shah. And they put out a warrant on him. They put out a contract for him, so he escaped. But he had that wrestling background, so he went to the States, and finally ended up in Minnesota and got a job training the Minnesota Gophers wrestling team. And boy, they were pretty darn good at that time.
I would say so.
was training him, and eventually met Vern Gagne and got a chance to go into the professional wrestling training camp. As I said earlier, that's where I met him, and he just loved wrestling. And whether people know this or not, he loved you. He loved his fans. He just loved to perform, and he loved children. He loved the young children. But once he went to that locker room and toward the ring, he was all business. He was the Iron Sheik, as I was, and as most are. But he was exceptionally that way because he just loved the business that he was in. I met Khosrow when he was going through the training camp in Minnesota with Vern Gagne, along with Ric Flair and Ken Patera, Jim Brunzell, Greg Gagne, just a few to name. And after he got done out of the training camp, I had a roofing company with my father, and I started training at the same gym. So he came up to me and started talking because we had an amateur background of wrestling. And he would toss me around. He was at that time about 185, 190 pounds, not an ounce of fat on him. And really I've never had an ounce of fat on him. He was just a big man. But so we got to know each other kind of outside the ring, and we both were living in Minnesota. And my father and I had a roofing company, and Khosrow was wondering if he could get a job with us somehow to make some money. And so I asked my dad, and we put him to work as our kettleman on our roofing company up there in Eden Prairie, Minnesota.
And now all these decades later, both Hall of Famers, pretty incredible. What's his legacy? I know you'll hear a lot of people say, one of the greatest heels that professional wrestling period has ever seen. What is his legacy? What is Sheik's legacy?
Well, Khosrow, Iron Sheik, was never afraid to put a little heat on him, as they say in our business. And when he went into the full Iron Sheik character, as I went into the full-time Sergeant Slaughter character, and it just so happened that I gave an idea to Mr. McMahon Sr. when I came back from my second tour of duty of the WWF at that time, that Mr. McMahon Sr. used to call me Sergeant. He says, Sergeant, it's so good to have you back. You're the greatest villain of all time. And was patting me on the back. And I said, well, Mr. McMahon, if you think I'm such a good villain, you should see me as a hero. And
Right.
he goes, a hero? Sergeant Slaughter is a hero? What's your idea? And so I told him my idea about here you have the Iron Sheik and all that happened in Iran and the hostage situation, the killing of the Marines at the embassy and the Black Hawks going down. I went through the whole scenario with him, and I almost had him hypnotized.
Wow.
And right at the last moment, he said, no, Sergeant Slaughter can never be a hero. It would work for a few months, but then you wouldn't be able to keep it up. And I looked over his shoulder, and there his son is, who's taking over the company, Vincent Kennedy McMahon, going like this. I love it. And his father turned around and said, Vinny, don't you ever make the sergeant a hero. So off we went. And the next week that we did television in Allentown, Pennsylvania, we did 3 shows. And the first 2 I was on, and the third hour I wasn't on. But the Iron Sheik was going to have a match on the third hour. So here comes Vincent Kennedy to me, and he goes, are you ready? And I said, ready? I was born ready, Vince. I said, what do you mean? He goes, to do what you talked about. I said, and I kept saying, what do you mean? What are you talking about? He said, what you told my dad last week, and I said, oh, you mean about going against the Iron Sheik? He said, yeah, I want to do it. I said, oh, okay. Yeah. I got half my outfit off.
Right.
And I said, when you want to do it? And he says, now. I said, now? Right now? He goes, right now. I'm going to go into the truck and tell Kevin and you and I and Kevin are the only ones that are going to know about it. And I said, he said, the element of surprise, element of surprise. So he didn't tell Fred Lassie, nobody. So Sheik is in the ring wrestling Eddie Gilbert, beating him up pretty bad. And right before Vince leaves, he goes, Sarge, give me your best General Patton promo. Because back then we didn't have scripts. We just ad-libbed everything.
Right.
And so it was time. He said, when your music plays, go up. So I'm watching the monitor, and Sheik is beating up Eddie some more after he beat him 1, 2, 3, and had the camel clutch on him again. And finally the music plays. And I'm watching the monitor, and I see Fred Blassie and the Sheik's mouths at the same time going, wrong music, wrong music. They're looking around. That's not our music. That's Sergeant Slaughter's music. And out I come. I blow the whistle, and then all hell broke loose.
That's incredible.
And
That it was actually based off of real life events.
Yeah, they do that. It was on. So I got into the ring, made sure Eddie was okay. Sheik and I had a few words, didn't touch each other. I got in the ring, got Eddie out of the ring on a stretcher and a gurney, and out he went. And I right before I went out there, I couldn't find my campaign cover, so I grabbed a baseball cap and wore that out there. And I got the microphone, and I just started ad-libbing a promo. And I said, Iron Sheik, I declare war on you. And right the hour before that, everybody was booing and kicking and spitting at me. And now they're listening to me, and I'm declaring war on the Iron Sheik. And then I finally said, I've been doing this since I was a young boy in school, in the Cub Scouts and the Boy Scouts and the Marine Corps. And I really laid it on, and I put my hand on my heart, and I started doing the Pledge of Allegiance. Well, that place erupted. They all jumped on their chairs and had their lighters going and did the Pledge of Allegiance with me. Gives me goosebumps right now thinking about it. And I went from the most hated villain of all time to the most loved hero of all time in a matter of minutes. Just like that. It looks like he did. And just went crazy. And we actually started the WWF into a new era where they saw a battle between two guys that were fighting for their country, basically. And we had the flags, and we had the Ayatollah, and Ronald Reagan. You know, he actually invited me to the White House because of what I was doing for patriotism for the country. And it was just an incredible turn of events. It's not the only thing that got things going with the WWF at that time, but Vince was just taking it over, and off we went to the races.